Am I in?
Yes, you're in. I'm just checking the live stream.
I won't talk. I'll let you do your thing.
No, it's just I'll be kind of looking away because I'm looking at that on a different screen.
When I first tried joining, it asked if I wanted some kind of download, and
Oh, really? Are you using the same device you've used in the past?
I am. My screen says live on YouTube.
Yeah, so does mine, but I don't see it yet. I mean, and it should be there. Yes, we are live on YouTube.
Okay. May I tell you who from the committee I think is able to attend? Just because you'll see those names pop up.
Well, I check them off as they arrive.
Okay. I think we're gonna have a full house. I think everyone can join. Mike Kennedy is not sure, but everybody else I think is affirmative.
And there's Warren,
Warren, you're blue.
not green. All right.
Chief, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm not
And
green, man.
And I can see you in full color, which is very good. We are live streaming, so
Great.
that is taking place. Because we had so many issues with live streaming,
Right.
also provided the actual link into the meeting, but anyone that is not on the committee will be muted. And we're also going to, I'm also going to shut off their video because of problems that have happened with other places that have allowed people into these meetings. You know,
Okay.
muting them is great unless they hold up a derogatory sign.
Right.
So that way, what you'll see is you'll see a bunch of different boxes, but not the people.
Okay.
With their names, will we see?
If they choose to put their real name, then yes. You can kind of say who you are or aren't.
Okay.
But you know, we hopefully won't have the disruptions that other places have experienced.
I think I saw where Zoom is instituting new kind of protocols.
I think everyone has to because of the hackers and the problems.
Yeah. No, I think they're going to tighten it up and require more of those passwords or the code or whatever.
Right.
So Warren, all well in your world?
Things are great.
Oh, there's Bob.
What's that?
There's Bob Reitman.
Ah, good.
Hello, Ann.
How are you, Bob?
Well, how do I get my voice up?
Well, we see you and hear you fine.
Hey, Tom.
My sign language isn't good, Tom.
Oh, but we see you and hear you.
Oh, now you're muted. Now you're back.
Well, I've unmuted it, but I don't hear anybody.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
Your volume control on your keyboard, you might have a picture of a speaker with sound waves coming out.
Hi, Sandra.
Ann, hello, how are you?
Okay, and you?
Good. This is my lone rose in the ground cover, the bed of ground cover.
So it's a serious photograph? It's a real photo?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
So I took it last year, just, you know, down on the flower in the bed.
Nice.
Kind of cool, huh?
Yeah, it is. Is that a knockout rose? No.
I don't know. I don't know. Looks like a knockout to me.
Yep, I agree.
How are you? How are you?
All is well.
Good, good. Beautiful day today.
I know. So Warren, this is Dick's Grand Slam.
Nice.
It's just a painting, but
And was that from last year or this year or 20 years ago?
I think about 20 years ago, Dick got the slam and I gave him this. I mean, it wasn't the world's finest art and it sat maybe in the attic. And then when he took this room as his office, he said, "Where did this come from?"
My grand slam is one bonefish and one tarpon.
Yeah, my grand slam is standing on the front of the boat without falling off. So we need a couple more people.
Are we expecting a full house?
I believe it's a full house. Mike Kennedy was the only question that I had.
Okay.
And he was gonna try to make it, but he wasn't sure.
Warren, you're not green.
No, aren't you pleased?
Well, it's a little shocking, actually.
That's the beef on green to me, kind of.
That's right. You're now in your blue phase.
Right.
Yeah,
The 7522 is Nancy Wright.
okay, thank you.
Are we live? It looks like we're live. This is
We
great.
are.
We are.
Have we worked out a different approach, or we've just figured out what Google did to us?
What we have worked out is actually a workaround where right now, the link that you use to get here is also on our village website. So everyone can actually come to the meeting, but I'm only allowing in the people that are on the committee so others can listen. But I will be I'll be muting them and turning their cameras off too.
And then separately streaming the meeting to YouTube, is it?
Because it happens to be working today.
All right.
So it's another avenue, but if we lost the stream, we would still be able to continue the meeting.
Great. Great news. Okay.
Um,
That works for me.
I have to admit an iPhone of someone I don't know yet because I haven't seen their number. So we're gonna let somebody in and we'll see who they are.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Ann. How are you?
Okay, and you?
Good, thank you.
I hope you got outside today.
Well, I'm in Florida for a couple days. And
Okay,
it's hot. It's hot.
well, thank you for joining us.
Sure.
So that phone number I do not recognize.
Oh, which one?
695?
The last
Or,
digit.
oh, 956, got it. So that's Nancy, got it.
Yes. The iPhone we don't recognize. I also have another one that I don't recognize.
That's probably me, Jim Deacon. I just got on, but
Okay, Jim.
I'm stuck at a meeting. My car.
So Steve Szymborski. And maybe Mike Kennedy.
Who's playing the music?
That's you.
Should we wait a minute for Steve and Mike?
Let's give him a couple minutes. That music keeps playing. Let's give him one.
All right, so I have now muted everyone. If you could, whoever is playing that music, please turn it off, and I'll go ahead and unmute everyone. Sounds better. Well, we'll see how long.
Hello. Tom, if you can hear me, wave.
Yep,
I cannot hear anyone.
did you?
Oh, there we are.
All right, you're using two different devices.
Yeah, I was having trouble getting the audio up on the computer.
So, Bob, are you last digits 4343?
I'm sorry, I could not.
The last.
You have your phone also. Turn off your phone.
He's
I
using.
did.
Okay, now you should be
And
good.
now I
right?
can't hear anyone.
Oh,
Yeah, your last digits are 4343 on your phone.
he can't hear.
I bet Sylvia wishes she could do that.
I believe
I don't know
4343
what the
is.
problem is.
Do you think he doesn't have his volume up?
He probably, well, he's probably got his, he should turn down his computer if he wants to use his phone.
Now, that was kind of the question we were asking, is what he has the computer speaker turned on.
That's why Karen loves these Zoom meetings.
Oh, yeah, don't we all?
Tim, can you hear me?
I can. Who is that?
It's Jim Deacon.
Oh, Jim, we can hear you just fine.
Yeah, you won't be able to see me, but okay, that's good. Thanks.
Okay,
Yeah, Jim is the block that just says iPhone.
right. And who is
Yeah.
the phone number ending in 7522?
Nancy Wright.
Oh, okay. All right. And then Bob now, I don't know if he can hear us.
Bob's back.
We're trying to bring Bob back.
Is anybody talking to Bob? I'm going to give him a call.
A splendid idea.
Yeah, I keep asking him to turn on his
Oh, there we
video.
go.
There he is. We're going to watch him answer his phone from.
Haven't called him yet.
Oh, okay. Well, Bob, you're back with us visually. Okay. Bob, we're trying to connect your phone call.
I've got the video, but I cannot get audio on my Mac for
Can
some
you
reason.
turned up on your Mac?
I don't have his cell phone number.
He's on
My
it.
cell phone number is
Ah,
Hey,
we can hear you now.
Bob,
543 4343.
Okay. What we need you to do, Bob, is to turn down the volume on your computer and then use your cell phone to hear.
Okay, I can do that. Once I find the volume. Okay, the volume should be down on.
Okay, the second thing we ought to try, do you know how to turn down or off the mic on your computer?
I don't know how to turn it off. I do know how to turn it down. I've muted it.
Well, that's getting good enough, I think. Why don't we get started?
Okay, I think we can start. I may send a quick text to Steve, except, yeah, just to see if he's going to be able to join us. So give me one quick second, if that's okay.
Sure.
Steve is trying to get in on the old meeting from the 3rd.
Oh,
So, Ian,
Yes,
if you do get in touch with him,
yes. I can't remember the day you sent that invitation. I think.
June 9th.
the
Okay,
easy way for him to get in is to go right on to the Gates Mills website, and he can click in and come right to the meeting that way.
okay.
Or his June 9th email.
Yes.
Okay, we'll see. And Mike Kennedy was going to try, but if I think if Steve can jump on, then we'll zoom along.
Okay.
I just sent Steve an email asking him to go to the website and join that way.
I sent a text. Maybe we'll get going.
I'll keep an eye open for him.
Okay. Or Janet, do you have Steve's phone number? Do you have that list handy?
I do.
Okay.
Zimborski is 440. Here, I'll give him a call.
Do you mind?
That
Sure.
would be best. We are live streaming as far as giving out phone numbers.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
good point.
Okay, so I'm just going to start by welcoming anyone who's joining the meeting and not on the committee. Thanks for your interest in the village finances, and we will be taking questions at the end of the meeting. And I'd like to just give an update on some, oh, there's Steve, on some communication since our last meeting from residents. And I did receive a communication from a resident that hopes that our recommendation to the long range financial planning and therefore then to council will include all of the options possible for the finances. And this same resident strongly encourages the village to pursue changing school districts, since it would be a big change in revenue
You forgive me for laughing.
So that was the one email that I got. And then the other update I have is I spoke with Todd Hunt, our legal counsel for the village, about the feasibility of a flat tax. You know, is this something that as a chartered village we can do? And Todd said that he had not really seen a flat tax done in the past, but their opinion is that a flat tax would maybe not be permissible, but a voted assessment to all villagers might be legally acceptable if provided the public purpose is narrow and benefits everyone equally. And I inquired, I said, how about like a road tax? And he is familiar with other municipalities where the assessment is based on where people live if the road is in front of their house. So there would have to be some more clarification on that, but it's something that I think could be in the mix, is a possibility. And I also asked about the term of a tax levy. And the legally maximum term of a real estate levy is 5 years per the Ohio Revised Code. So I'm not sure how other municipalities have extended the term of a levy longer. It would also require some more research.
I'm wondering if that's charter millage, Ann.
That could be. That very easily could be, because if it's in your charter, it goes until you stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meaning that we would have the ability to set a limit, Janet and Tim?
I believe in Wait Hill, we had millage in our charter, and it did not have a set term.
Well, I like that answer much better.
But, I can clarify that with Todd as well, or with the Board of Elections.
I may not have used the right words when asking. And then the final of my homework, I checked with Brian at Rita, and the numbers that Jim, you were asking about, and it did not seem like they were right from the last meeting, the numbers on the increases in income tax. Those numbers actually are correct. If the income tax, if the credit were taken away and raised, 0.25, that would produce 517,687 more in revenue. And that being said, if we raised from our 1% to 1.50, still with no credit, it would double the increase to $1,035,374. So the numbers that were distributed last time were correct. It's just based on increasing from our 1% with the, I believe, with the credit. So that was my homework, I believe, from last meeting, this. So.
Okay, well, that's, glad you got that. It didn't seem right, but I guess if it is, it is.
I know, it's, when you said it, I understood what you were saying, so that being said, did everyone receive just a chart of ideas for different tax events?
Yes, that was helpful.
Yes, we got them.
Yeah.
The first item on the agenda is pretty much just if there's discussion for this. I think for any kind of a levy increase, it was obvious that I just put on the chart 1 mil or 2 mil, but you can just carry it out for, you know, $221,041 per mil. Any comments on the income tax, the different scenarios, or?
Yeah, and I'd like to better understand the purpose of the credit and why a credit is good or bad, and so.
On the income tax, why a credit is given to residents who work outside of the village?
Correct. So it looks like some of the scenarios are reducing, eliminating, or increasing, or maybe just eliminating, or I guess also reducing that credit. So what is the purpose of the credit, and why do we have it in the first place, and what is good about it or bad about it?
It would be I would like everyone to weigh in. It's my opinion that it's a benefit to the residents of the village that work outside the village, so that you're not paying the 1% to Gates Mills, as well as whatever percentage you're paying where your workplace is. So it is basically just a benefit to residents of the village.
Okay.
So I think you can look at that both ways. You can look at that residents that work and are receiving a tax credit because they work outside of the village, that they are receiving a credit when they are not using less services. However, the flip side of that, which that has been presented to me in that way, this way working people are getting a credit when they are not having any reduction in services. However, you can also look at it that if you're a retired homeowner, you are not paying any income tax. So if you are paying, property tax and income tax, you are paying more tax in the same way. You are not receiving any more benefits.
So if I understand you correctly, if I work in the village and pay taxes in the village, I don't get a credit.
That's
Or
right.
That's right?
That's right.
Okay. And then do we have any sense of what percentage of the village is categorized as retired, or what number?
That's been the $64,000 question for a long time. We just don't have access to the numbers on that. I think once we get to Rita, who gives us a much better analytical capability, we might be able to back into some sort of estimate, looking at relative numbers of payers of real estate taxes versus relative number of payers of income tax, and get a guess. But we don't have a named list of, George pays real estate and income, Pete only pays real estate. We don't have that.
And we're just sort of engaging with Rita. So I don't know if we've engaged with them or we engaged with them next week, but does it take time for them to see our history, or
Yes.
as soon as we're plugged in, are they able to give us this analysis, or will it take a year?
We will get some numbers. We will get data out of CCA and into Rita. And we will be able to use what we get, but it won't be nearly the level of detail or the level, kind of the sophistication of analysis that Rita will be able to do once they begin to accumulate data on their own. So it will take some time for us to really get a full picture.
So Warren, in addition, I think last meeting you weren't able to join in, and Rita has, our population is 2,270 residents. And their model is based on, which is their model forever, the model that they use for all municipalities is that 50% of residents work. So I don't know if that's applicable in Gates Mills or not, but their model is 2,270 people, 50% of those work. And their model also that they use is that 70% of those 50% working live in the village.
So you're saying 70% of the 50% would not be subject to the credit?
No, opposite. 70% would be.
They live in the village but work elsewhere. And my bet is that that's low. My bet is it would be higher than 70%. But it's a guess at this point.
It's a guessing game. I think it would be helpful to the village to know for many different issues, how many retired, how many working, how many. I think it'd be good information to have, but we can't get it right now.
And just to, throw another spanner in the mix, I think that looking forward, there are going to be some issues around an increasing population that is working from home, which I think will very definitely increase as businesses realize the benefits of remote working and how good the technology is. I think you're going to see an increase in people who might have driven downtown now staying in Gates Mills and working from home. And it will be very interesting to see how the tax laws are changed to, on one hand, in the urban areas, help them there, and on the other hand, reflect where people are working. I think there's going to be, this will drive changes in particular state tax laws as we look over the next 2 or 3 years.
So Tim, just out of curiosity, if somebody worked from home 60% of the week, how does that impact their taxes? Would they still?
It doesn't as yet.
As yet, it does not.
Okay.
However,
but if they were working full-time at home, it would certainly would, right?
Not yet. But I think there's going to,
if their place of business is their home, that would affect where they're taxed. But unless their place of business is in the village, they're going to be taxed at their site of employment.
Yeah,
Okay.
the nexus will be at where the company is. But there are forces on both sides of the issue, big, substantial forces that I think it's yet to play out in legislatures. And it's something that we need to be mindful of. If we were the city of Cleveland, I would be terrified of it.
Right.
Yes. Tim, I think it's fair to say that we are in a kind of a catch-22. We cannot have the data that we need to make a hard, a well-grounded decision. I don't happen to believe that the demographic of Gates Mills is characteristic of the state of Ohio. And Rita which has
350
communities across the state,
is
using that
information to form their 50% or their 70%
tests.
And the only way we're going to get it is wait and see how our returns come out.
Right. And getting back to the original question that Warren asked, that'll take a year or two before we really have a good handle on that.
So is it fair to
I'm
say?
not sure whether this year will become the base year or next year is going to be the base year.
Right.
So is it fair to say that in all the income tax scenarios where there's a revenue of 483, 517, 672, those are all based on that 50 and 70% of 50, but they could be
No,
materially off?
no. They're all, it says under action item, it says increase, like the second column is increasing from our current 1% to 1.25 and eliminating the credit. So these are not all keeping the credit. Some are keeping the credit and some are eliminating the credit. But yes, all of these numbers are based on Rita's models.
Okay.
It's a Corky and Lenny's menu. You can pick from any column you like.
I think so. I want to drive home the point that I think Warren is raising is that while those numbers are calculated correctly, they're calculated based on a set of assumptions about the demographic that we think are likely not to be accurate. And but in which way and by how much, it's the moment it's very difficult to say.
Right.
I believe the first number, the 483, eliminating the credit, is accurate based on previous numbers.
Yeah, because it does. Well, yeah, because that's not making an estimate on the demographics. That's just the impact of that credit on the number.
And I'd like to make a suggestion. It seems to me that to attack this question by saying we need X number of dollars is the wrong approach. I think that what we have to say is what is the documented cost of running the village of Gates Mills, and what is the most appropriate way to share that cost across our residents, and to the extent that we have employers who pay income tax in the village, those folks as well. But that's not a big number. I think that if we are going to have to face the electorate one way or another, either we change the credit, which will surface when there's next an election for members of council and mayor, or we determine a method that equitably shares the cost across the community. And the fact that some people are retirees, as am I, and others who are just entering the labor market is immaterial. If you are here in the village, you have to bear a cost of living here.
I agree, Bob, and I'm going on the chairman of the Long Range Financial Planning's advice at last meeting to identify options and to quantify. So I agree with you. We do not have a target with a specific number because we are part of a basket. Our response, council's response may be choosing a couple different events from different subcommittees. So hence the chart was just kind of to quantify some different choices a little bit for what it may produce.
Yeah, I think. Let me just say, your assignment as the tax subcommittee is exactly as Ann said.
Right.
Then the committee as a whole, the Long Range Financial Planning Committee, is going to aggregate all of those options into a report to council and make it a cohesive and structured report to council. And the long range financial planning's responsibility is to present that basket of options to council. Ultimately, Robert is exactly right that it will be for council then to say, all right, you know, what do we do to fund the village in an equitable way? And here are options that we now have in front of us so that we can make informed financial decisions about how to do that. And as representatives of the electorate, it's their job to understand the impact on the various demographic segments and come up with something that while it won't be welcomed with open arms by everybody, is welcomed by open arms with most people.
Or
different way, Tim.
That's not liked by anyone.
Yes, that's right. That's right. You know, there will be no solution that pleases everybody, of course, but that's the job of council is to and the mayor to develop a proposal that will be satisfactory to the community.
Exactly.
I think our report may include, if Tim agrees, it may include suggestions to follow up on different things. But yes, I don't think I'm not viewing this as our job to decide who gets taxed and exactly how much. It's
right. I think we need to make sure that council and the mayor understand the impact of various choices and whether or not selecting them would be adequate to the task. There will almost certainly be follow-up suggestions, particularly coming out of shared services, where they won't be able to wrap a bow around here's a deal with Chagrin, for example, but they will say, okay, here's the shape of something we might pursue. Then it will be up to the mayor and council to decide whether or not they want to pursue it.
And we've covered the income tax for about 30 minutes now. Can we move to the other types of options that are on your sheet, the millage, for example?
Indeed. Go to millage.
Can you just highlight, I don't know whether you can put this up on your screen or not. If not, maybe just talk through while we find it on our own screens.
For a levy, you know, each 1 mil produces an increase of $221,041. And the legal counsel is pursuing, but we feel that it can be set by council of what kind of a term that levy would have. So it's on a lot of these under the pros and cons columns. The pros were also the cons. It is any of the levies go to a vote. All homeowners carry the burden, and a levy can be designated for specific use, as in roads, culverts. And the timing is after, if it's a November election, the timing would be, if I'm right, Janet, that the revenues would come in the following, if it's a November election, they come in the following January.
And this would not be shared with the schools.
That's correct.
Yes.
So when you see your real estate bill, your real estate bill really is an aggregation of various levies from a few entities. One of those entities is the school, one is the library, one is the village of Gates Mills, and then the conservation levy itself. So that's all added up together. And so when people say 60% of your real estate tax bill goes to the Mayfield school system, that's true, but Gates Mills levies come to us entirely.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure that was clear.
Yeah.
So, you know, to me, the income taxes, which we just covered, are nice, but it really just affects primarily the people that are working. And there is a portion that's not working, whatever that percentage is, whether it's 50 or not. To me, the millage spreads the cost of running the wonderful village over everybody that's living here. And I frankly think that's a good way to go. I'm happy paying the income tax I'm paying, whether I'm working here or working in Willoughby and getting a credit. But everybody pays. Kind of the comments that Bob Reitman just made pretty eloquently. We're in a great village. We're living safely. It's well maintained. Many of us are of the same mindset in terms of neighborliness and the things that the village does. This is where we've chosen to live for a long time, and new people come to love it. And we need to figure out what it costs to run and divide that up. And there's no free ride. If you live in the village, you should pay part of that cost. I think the millage approach, whether it's 1 mil or 2 mil, spreads that cost around all people that are living in the village. The income tax already covers those that are working in the village. Let's say they're working at a restaurant or they're working at some other institution here. They're paying for their share of the use of the village during the time that they're working here.
Do you have a feeling, Steve, about it? I keep calling it a flat tax, but do you have a feeling about some sort of an assessment that would be an equal assessment per home versus millage based on home value?
You know, I've never thought about that. Get into whether you have, you know, a $250,000 house or a $2 million house. I don't know. I haven't thought about that. The flat tax would divide it equally. I don't know if that's good or bad. We're accustomed to paying based on the assessed values of our homes. You know, we got to think too about how easy it will be to explain this to people. Janet made the comment last time about the, you know, 5 seconds to make your pitch, you know, for most of the people. So if we start to introduce things new, like a flat tax, an assessment, and try to explain why those are different than what they're accustomed to, you may just have made it more complicated than it needs to be.
I would think that Steve is right on point there. If you decide that you're going to divide the total needed money, let's assume it's $500,000, which would be 2.5 mils. And you're going to divide that among 2,000 residences. All of a sudden, you're going to find out that people who live in big houses are going to be paying far less than people who live in little houses. And they have made a value judgment to say, I want to live in a mansion or I want to live in a cottage. So I'm really endorsing what Steve is saying. I think that as much as I would like somebody else to pay my tax, I need to pay my ratable share if I want to enjoy living in the village. And that would be the argument that I know that it's not our committee's responsibility, but that's the argument I would make to council. And I believe when you go out to get votes, you're going to need that argument. Separating residents because they work in the village, they don't work in the village, they live in a big house, they don't live in they live in a small house, is going to make getting anything voted more difficult. And the only thing we're talking about that's not voted is reducing the credit. And that is discriminatory, but council has the power to do that.
Well, and I'd add that although it's not voted on itself, it ultimately council is held accountable for it in the next election.
Oh, yes.
Just to give you a perspective on the relative importance of each of these streams, in our budget for 2020, which was done, completed before the COVID crisis happened, we had budgeted 48% of the village revenues are going to come from real estate taxes, 34% from our municipal income tax, and other were 17%.
So would you ever think of doing a combination of both? I mean, if it's a 50% credit, could you reduce that to a 25% credit and do, you know, the
Some
real
an
estate
increase
taxes?
in real estate increase? Sure. I mean, that's certainly on the table.
You know, I'm not sure people would, well, what I recall from last time is, you know, the deficit is relatively large and it might be more palatable if didn't go out with as large a real estate tax increase, because don't you run the risk of that, having that approved or voted in?
It is a risk. I believe that Bob Reitman is of the thought that it might take a couple runs with a levy for villagers to get educated on what services we have and what needs to be paid for.
And do you know how many homes are in the village?
Janet, around 1,000?
That's correct.
And do we know a 1 mil levy, how does that impact, you know, $100,000 of value?
It is 0.0001
times your value.
times the value.
And is it fair to say the assessed value is 35% of the market value? Is that how it works?
Yeah, more or less. But yeah, one of the problems, just to add a wrinkle to all of this, and it's one of the reasons why we keep renewing these old levies. If we were to jettison one of those levies and vote a new levy, we would not be entitled to the state rollback on that levy.
Which would increase the assessment per valuation, because you wouldn't get the credit, which I think is like a 12.5% rollback of the tax, if I recall.
Yes.
And so there are problems with new levies. They are more expensive to the taxpayer.
They are.
Both because of the loss of the rollback, but also because the levy that we're going to be voting on this year was based on appraisals back in 1996, I think. Janet, am I right? Is that the right year?
95 or 96, yeah.
Yeah, and all of a sudden it's going to be 2020.
Do you have more follow-up, Warren?
No, thank you.
Does it make sense for us to just start to get some ideas on paper as a report to the long-range financial planning? If you all would like, we can structure our report in a manner that has what we like the best and going down, or just put different categories. I do not think it's our call necessarily to I mean, unless it's overwhelming. I mean,
one of the things, you know, your most recent summary with pros and cons, I thought was a very good approach. And I think that maybe my suggestion, but it's up to you and your committee, is that if you quantify the options and then also include sort of some build out verbiage on the pros and cons. I think that would be very helpful.
I think that's the only solution that council will want. They have it's their burden, but it's also their choice. So the levy is easy because each mill is $221,000 and change.
But the other machinations of increasing the income tax and decreasing the credit, I think just pointing out the pros and cons is all that we can really do to adequately inform them.
This is Nancy Wright. I would like to add another pro to the idea of a mill levy, which is all of the homeowners have the ability to accept the valuation that the county has designated for your home, so that there is an approval process there. If you don't like how the valuation of your home is, you have the right to contest it, and there's a variety of ways of doing it. So that I think that people accept that number, the valuation they have. I think that's probably the most fair in my perspective of spreading the cost of running the village.
Good point.
Yep.
So that pro's now been identified, that people have the right to challenge their property valuation. There's a process for doing that.
Good point.
So if you don't challenge it, you're accepting the valuation of your property.
So that's
And just for the record, it is not inexpensive to challenge them. And the reason I say that is you can't merely say, you've misvalued my property. They want documentation. So that means an appraisal, which comes with an appraisal fee, photography, all kinds of stuff. So, and I know I just went through it.
But you're
right, it is an option.
Does anyone have any suggestions of ideas for this committee to be including in a report to the long-range financial planning that were not included on this chart?
No.
So these pretty much are our options. We're in agreement on that.
Yes.
Steve, I think so.
Yeah, I think they're good choices.
Sorry, Jim?
I think they're all good choices. I think the risk, though, that's involved with the mills, maybe the reduction of the credit is something that we could try first.
The difference on those two actions, a reduction in credit is an action that can be taken by council without residents' input.
We've done it 6. Officially done it.
So in my mind, it's a very different action. It's council doing something without the residents voting.
It's Steve, if I recall from a meeting or two ago, I think Tim had suggested that we are running $400,000 to $500,000 now, or we will be shortly. Deficits forthcoming shortly, if not already near term, based on these costs, less revenue, we don't have the inheritance tax, et cetera, and that we're bearing the cost of the infrastructure that otherwise years ago were paid for by inheritance. In some cases are shared by the county if you get the share of the budget. So we're looking at, from what I gathered, Tim, $400,000 to $500,000 really is kind of what the nut is that we have to try to find a longer term answer for. I don't see the income tax creeping our way up there to really tackle that. I think it puts a too big of a burden on working people. And I'm one of those working people, so I would pay it and I don't mind paying it and I love living here. But I think, as I said before, I don't think it covers the other half of the villagers, if that's the right number, that would not feel any additional impact of them. So, and to put something on the table, it's just a suggestion. I think we, or at least I would suggest we think about a 2 mil levy that would put $450,000 roughly into the village. to the extent we could specify that for things like capital improvements, where villagers could see that those monies are dedicated for specific purposes as opposed to being viewed maybe as just fungible and therefore at someone's discretion. But that might be a way to present it or sell it. But I think we're to the point, if your numbers are all right, that we just need to increase the revenue of the village, and it's going to come out of all of our wallets, and we got to find a fair way to do it. And I think the 2 mil levy is a way to start that discussion.
And it might be helpful as you craft a report to council or to the overarching long-range planning committee that we take the model that you had shared with us and look at the notes that go with each of the items and just make sure that we think that they're adequately explanatory of the pluses and minuses of each strategy. The levy is easy. It's a multiplication challenge. And I happen to agree with Steve.
Okay. I am happy for process. Janet, I'm going to need your help here. For process, I am happy to expand on pros and cons with a little more clear explanation, and I suppose make a new chart with Janet's help. But for process, is it okay for us to craft a new chart and distribute via email and have individual feedback, or do we need to
I think you can do that, and it funnels back to you, and then you aggregate and report in an open meeting.
So maybe one more meeting with a polished up report.
Yeah.
Is that agreeable with everyone?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I agree.
So will everyone please send to me before we start working on this. Please send me any ideas you have for clarification on pros and cons. And it sounds like I will put the heading on the page that starts with levies. So if that's agreeable, we'll get that done and do it by email, and then we'll set a date to just to finalize before we submit it to Tim's committee.
What's your timetable, Ann? How soon do you want our responses?
Treasurer Tim, what do you think? How soon do you want to see it polished?
Well, I would like to get, I think it's possible for us to get everything in each of the subcommittees wrapped up by the second half of July. So what I would say is that if you guys can have your meeting sometime before July 15th, that would be helpful, because then we'll begin to take the second half of July to put together the 3 subcommittees into one report to council. Does that make sense?
You would like how much time before council to put the 3 together?
Well, I'd like to be able to get to the August meeting for council.
I don't think it'll take that long for us to submit ideas and to supplement and do a form. And I know the closer we get to council, the crazier Janet gets. So I would say to keep the show on the road. How soon are you all comfortable with getting comments back to me on this chart? Today's Thursday, the 25th.
Let's say Friday next week.
Yeah,
Friday
within a week.
3rd?
Within a week. Good.
Friday the 3rd or Thursday the 2nd.
Are you revising the chart?
Well, next week's short because of some people will be taking off the weekend for the holiday.
Right.
But in your hands on Friday next week.
What, Steve?
I was just asking, you're going to revise the chart before we comment on it?
I was hoping for comments before I redid it.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure if we're waiting for a revision or we're commenting on what we have. We're commenting on what we have.
Nope, give me as much as you got, and then I'll try to put it in something that's logical.
Yeah, if
Yeah, if there are suggestions, offer them.
Okay, so I think I would prefer just 1 week till Thursday the 2nd. If everyone, so if you would look at the chart, think of any more. I did feel a little like multiple personalities doing the pros and cons because they went on both sides, but the more input, the better our final chart will be.
Right.
Great.
So, and then we'll go from there. Next steps, I think we just talked about. In addition, if you think of anything that we are forgetting to put in this report, just please send it.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Good.
Okay. Thank you all for coming, and email is good, and just remember my middle initial in that email address, please.
So we need to see if we have any questions from any outside, any audience people.
Chief?
You have 4 people watching. I'm one of 4. And no questions or comments. I did post to send questions and comments by email to Committee Chair Ann Whitney and put your email address.
Great.
Okay.
I appreciate it. I think when council has their discussion, the discussions that we have had about how people feel what is the right way to go will obviously be conveyed. So even though it might not be on a chart of options, it's all part of the discussion. So thank you all for coming at 5 o'clock on a Thursday.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Ann.
Have a great night, everybody.
Yeah,
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Tom.
Bye.
thanks.
Stay well.
Bye.
So Tom, did any of the people watching have a last name of Whitney?
It doesn't tell me anything other than how many.
Okay.
So you were one of the 4?
I was just wondering.
All right,
And
so
Janet,
we were 50% of the watching audience.
that's good. And Janet, you're willing to help me do did Janet disappear?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a feeling she's much better at charts than I am. Thank you, Tom.